How do you think Elon Musk is looking at these ad results, Scott?
Um, Thanks a lot, Emily. I think honestly they're largely in line. I think when you see the MDAU number go up so significantly, I think there are positives to take from the results. And I think he's probably also reading a lot of the tweets about people suddenly gaining a lot more followers, and they're obviously constructive on that.
So let's talk a little bit about then the broader ad industry. Clearly, we're seeing digital ads take a toll. We saw it at Meta. We saw it at Snap. How do you expect this to play out over the course of the year if the macro environment doesn't significantly change?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is historically, if you had kind of a challenging economic backdrop, it would seem like those areas, including historically digital advertising, would actually perform better because the thought is that the shift over from, say, legacy or traditional advertising to digital advertising would accelerate given that more challenging backdrop. Now is a different time, though, however, because of the impact, among other things, of IDFA, which has had a negative impact on a lot of digital and social media advertising companies. And it's one of the primary reasons that we've seen Meta platforms struggle so mightily. And people cheered when the company generated 7% revenue growth.
So let's talk a little bit about this Elon deal. How bullish are you on this? Clearly Twitter has a lot of potential. I think everyone can agree that has not necessarily been realized from a business perspective, from a user's perspective, from an influence perspective, but still very controversial whether or not he's going to be good for this platform.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the things that everyone can agree on, and there's a lot of different opinions on this proposed transaction, is that if Elon Musk ends up buying Twitter, a lot of change is going to come to the company and to the platform. Now, whether those changes are going to be for the good, for the bad, or otherwise remains to be seen. But a lot of us who have been using Twitter for a lot of time would acknowledge that it's largely the same platform that it was 10 years ago. And that in and of itself, I think, speaks to some of the issues that people have around Twitter, the edit button, for example, that Musk has highlighted in some of his tweets. That being said, however, I think the reality is that I look at it as, a pendulum, right, that sits between Twitter's focus historically on health and safety, at least over the last couple of years, and Musk's indicated focus on free speech. We've seen that pendulum swing quite far to health and safety. Musk obviously wants to shift it more to free speech. What that will do, in effect, is render less relevant or maybe irrelevant the notion of content moderation, which Twitter has spent a lot of money on, has a lot of employees doing, and that's clearly an area that Musk would seemingly look to make cuts to help not only fulfill his free speech goal, but also to help preserve and grow free cash flow.
The information is reporting that the FTC has opened an inquiry into how Musk disclosed his Twitter stake and whether or not he followed the rules there. What do you make of this and potential regulatory headwinds to this deal?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people have been looking for potential holdups in this transaction, especially legal and regulatory ones. Um, Look, I don't know the specifics of the inquiry, what exactly they're focused on. Musk is no stranger to a lot of these types of issues, but he's been able to push through them. I can't imagine that those types of issues are going to hold up this deal. I think at the end of the day, this really comes down to, does Elon Musk follow through on his financing and consummate the transaction, and what happens next? And I frankly think there are a lot of questions about the financing and the follow through. But in terms of legal and regulatory, I don't expect that to be the primary impediment for this deal going through.